We can finally take a breather. Welcome, everybody, into the Blue Jay Center podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network, along with Rob Dillamon and Cole Whiston. We are going to break down everything Toronto Blue Jays, every which trade they made, because holy crap, it was a lot. Let's just dive right in.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. Blue Jays Center.
Bautista drives it deep left field. Gone!
The sickest Toronto Blue Jays podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Fellas, you guys just got off the Blue Jay Center, Instagram Live. People that haven't checked out the page, I don't know how you haven't. If you're already here, but regardless, if you haven't, check out the Instagram page, Blue Jay Center. These guys were just live talking about the trade deadline right as the time expired. And fellas, I mean, that's a lot of moves. We wanted Ross to get frisky, and boy, did he get frisky. Cole, I'll start with you, bud. How we feeling?
I think we made 8 trades of note, and all 8 of them he hit on. I think that the fact that sentence even exists, full credit to Ross Atkins. My initial thoughts on the deadline is, great job, man. You did a lot more than I was anticipating you were going to do, so, claps around for that guy.
Absolutely. Rob, how you feeling, pal?
I would agree. And I think that most measured opinions would agree as well. I think that for me personally, I said on many shows that I do feel like just cutting the expirings, you need to make a bit of a deeper cut than that. They didn't do that. They didn't trade Chris Bassett, Kevin Gausman, or Chad Green, some of the guys that we mentioned with the expiring contracts beyond 2024. However, I think it's hard to argue looking at the individual value that all the guys that were traded for, you got pretty good return on them considering what you had to give up. And especially, and this will be a perfect segue to the main convo, Yusei Kikuchi being traded for a haul from the Houston Astros. I mentioned on the Instagram Live, regardless of what stratosphere you're a part of, whether you're the Blue Jays, the Astros, or somewhere in between, it does feel like a pretty solid consensus. The Blue Jays did very well in this trade, and we'll get into that right now.
Oh, yeah. That's the first one we're going to start with. Then we'll branch off after that. But last night, I don't know where you guys were, but I was playing softball, and I'm like, at this point, I could grab by his co-ed. I'm like, let me just get on my phone because I'm seeing Kikuchi's getting dealt. Let's see what's going on. First thing I see, boom, Jake Bloss. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, happy already. Good. Yeah, good.
Yeah. And they're saying that's like the beginning of the return. And I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah.
And then we see
anticipating 2 flyers.
Yeah. These are the Flyers, right?
Joey
Loperfido, and if you don't remember, his basically lone highlight in the big leagues this year was that wild catch he made at the wall where it went off his glove, then he caught with his bare hand, just a crazy one. That was Joey Loperfido. He's now a Blue Jay. And then Will Wagner, son of former big league closer Billy Wagner. How the hell did look? If that ain't desperation from the Astros, I don't know what is, fellas.
And okay, and here's my other thing. You're telling me that the Astros couldn't put together a package for the other plethora of available starting pitchers from other sellers that, definitely profile better than Yusei Kikuchi has ever profiled in his Blue Jays tenure, especially this year. The guy had a 6 ERA over the last 2 months. He had a 0.2 WAR, as Rob brought up yesterday. His WAR is lower than Loperfido's is this year. The year that we were like, oh yeah, we should trade Yusei Kikuchi. Look at the year he's having. That was the conversation a month ago. And Loperfido's been better because Yusei Kikuchi has been that bad in the last 2 months. Rob, I'll hand it over to you because I know you got thoughts.
No, yeah, that's exactly where I was going. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi, I've been a pessimist on Yusei Kikuchi for months now. And I mentioned the J-Hap comp from over half a decade ago. Mm-hmm. And look, everyone was... Yusei Kikuchi's been here for 2.5 years. No one's had a bad thing to say about the guy. We could eulogize him a little later, but in terms of the move itself, I mean, I was just hearing a lot of people say, this recent stretch won't have a major impact on his value. I'm sitting there like, I mean, I don't know. The numbers look pretty ugly. This is a guy who, for his career, has an ERA closer to 5 than 4, has an ERA plus in the mid-80s, has an ERA flirting with 7 in the past 2 months and change. I mean, to me, I was thinking there, like, how could this not affect his value? I do understand the point. Obviously he had to cover a lot more innings here, go third time through because this team just doesn't have the bullpen to have him go 5 and dive where he's most effective. On the Astros, I'm sure he'll be a whole lot more effective. They'll put him in a whole lot better situations than he was here. And I'm sure he'll be good, and I hope he's good. But the fact that you got a top 100 prospect from Fangraphs in the Fangraphs system and 2 other position players who are big league ready, I mean, to me, I think it speaks to the whole of the seller's market that the MLB trade deadline is. It's going to be for the foreseeable future. But this is insane. I mean, Eric Fetty, that's another comp that was traded. Who was he traded to again? The White Sox traded him to what team? What team was it? Can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But he's a guy who has control beyond this season. He has another year of control, and they got less from the team that they got him. They gave up less than the Astros got for Yusei Kikuchi, and immediately after, I thought it must be awful to be the Detroit Tigers front office and seeing what the return was for Kikuchi. Now you're talking about Tarik Skubal and Jack Flaherty was a rental as well. It's like it's got to be a nightmare. Now you're pressured to get the same value. Yeah, no. Overall, like I said, across all aspects, it's a home run move. Hard to have an opposite take.
I guess the Astros, and here's the other part. Obviously, Yusei Kikuchi in a vacuum. Left side, 97. I get it.
Sure.
But left side, 97, with the Crawford boxes in left field, I think that also doesn't profile very well for the Astros to trade for a guy like Yusei Kikuchi when they need a guy who probably is going to see a lot of the sixth inning this year. That team is riddled with starting pitcher injuries. I think Kikuchi is going to be used, like you said, in a more favorable situation. I actually think he'll be used in a very similar situation as to what the Jays did. Obviously, they have a better bullpen, so he won't necessarily need to see the meat of a third time through. But I think he is going to see the sixth inning more often than not to finish off this stretch for the postseason run for the Astros. And I think that with the Crawford boxes in right field, I was even more shocked that they traded all that for Yusei Kikuchi.
Yeah.
Here's what I will say too. One final point on that is that it really does feel like Ross Atkins targeted the perfect front office to make a trade for. You have the Houston Astros team, and obviously they're a team that you're seeing a lot of bad back and forth with their general manager. I mean, I don't know his history exactly with trades, but it does feel like a lot of really facetious comments going towards his way based on this move itself from the Astros fans. I mean, me personally, if I'm a team that has won multiple World Series in the past decade, granted one of them was a little fishy, I could care less. I could care less what moves they make, but it does feel as though the Astros are a team that, for the most part, has kind of underperformed all season long. Now they're kind of at the top of a really poor division. They have a shot to make the playoffs and make another run, obviously, because of their division simply. And yeah, that's a perfect team that wants to save what's remaining of a decaying dynasty and overpaying for a starting pitcher. I mean, it does feel as though that all the puzzle pieces fit up perfectly for Ross Atkins and the Blue Jays to pull this move off.
I don't know about you guys, but it feels to me that was the first trade in the Ross Atkins era that universally is loved
yes,
by Blue Jay fans. It's crazy.
That's
I
true.
mean, I mean, how can you not like that trade?
Matt Chapman's probably up there too.
Matt Chapman's got to be up there.
Yeah, but everyone loves to hate Ross Atkins. So there were probably some people who were like, Atkins this. Yeah, okay. There's those guys. You can't do that with this one. You just can't.
Yeah.
I mean, not yet, right? God forbid these guys.
Unless you're Jeff Passan on ESPN, then you can apparently.
Yeah.
Right. Anyways, so Jays fans listening, some of them don't even know who the hell these guys are yet, right? We're talking up these prospects and whatnot. Well, who the hell are they? Well, Jake Bloss, my God. I mean, like we talked about, we were baffled when we saw that he was even becoming a Blue Jay for Yusei Kikuchi, basically straight up. He's a 6'3" right-hander, third-round pick from the Astros of last season, and he's 23 years of age. He's already pitched in the big leagues, albeit they haven't gone great, but he's been flying through the minor leagues this year, but pitching very minimal amounts. Clearly, they were very desperate for pitching. Obviously, their injuries have been just all over the place pitching-wise, hence why they were desperate to go after a Yusei Kikuchi. But these are the minimal numbers you've got from the minor leagues for Jake Bloss, hence why he is sent down to Buffalo and not coming right to the Toronto Blue Jays. So he started the year in high A ball. Throw 4 games, an ERA just over 2, 17 innings, 25 strikeouts. He's great, right? But after 17 innings, they're like, nope, up you go to Double-A. We're like, okay, geez. In 8 starts, 44 innings, he had an ERA of $1.61. Basically couldn't do squat against them.
Yeah, absurd.
And they're like, okay, here's Triple-A. Let's see what you can do. He has 1 start and goes 4 one-hit innings. Doesn't walk anybody and strikes out 3. He was great. Here's the big leagues. Holy crap, that was quick. All within this year. It's crazy. Now, in the 3 starts he had in the big league level, an ERA of 6.94, one of which against the Oakland A's. So that's not something to keep. That's something to keep an eye on. But for God's sakes, he's a
11 innings, folks. 11 innings. 11
exactly.
Innings.
Very, very, very minimal sample size. But incredible return for Yusei Kikuchi, even if it was traded. You guys want to say, Cole? You want to
Yeah. Jake Bloss comes into our prospect system already ranked number 3. And on top of that, he is 1,000%, unless he gets injured, I guess, is going to start in the big leagues for this team this year. There was already conversations about him being Yusei Kikuchi's next start. With the move to AAA, it doesn't look like that's going to be the case, at least for this turn through the rotation. But do not be surprised if it's the next turn through the rotation, because he was expected to start on Monday for the Astros. So by all means, I think what's going to happen is he's going to start the next game for Buffalo that he can, and then he's going to do the next turn through the rotation. Obviously, if that goes well and they like everything they see, I bet you he sees the big leagues in his next start. I would be surprised if he starts more than 3 to 5 games in AAA this year before seeing a big league start, because that was the expectation with him in the Astros, and I think that's why the Jays, well, on top of the fact the Jays need starting pitching to just finish up the year, but I think that's also, the Jays would rather spend this time developing him here rather than, wasting the rest of this year in the minors just to have him be a part of our rotation and trying to earn a spot in next year's spring training. So, by all means, Jake Bloss is 100% going to start a game for the Toronto Blue Jays this season.
Absolutely. He's only pitched 1 game at AAA this year, and the Jays aren't in a pennant race trying to win a division. Right. So there's no reason to rush through him at 23 years old. I absolutely, he's going to stay in Buffalo. But if he starts shoving the way he has basically throughout the entire minor leagues, like you mentioned, 3 or 4 starts, and it wouldn't surprise us to get like a September call-up or something. Now, to the other guys, because there aren't more dudes. Joey Lopervito. First off, he's in Baltimore with the Blue Jays big club. He ain't no AAA guy, where he's the first dude we're going to see. He's 25 years old, former 7th-round pick by the Astros, a left-handed bat. He's 6'3", 220, so a hefty fella. And got his first taste of the big leagues this season with the Astros. We'll get into his major league numbers in a second. The reason he got called up, because in the 39 games at AAA, he had 13 bombs in 39 games and an OPS of 933. He was just crushing baseballs, just absolutely crushing baseballs at AAA. So he gets the call up to the big leagues. He's played 38 games with the Houston Astros and struggling a bit, right? 236 average, 299 on base, 658 OPS. So struggling a bit. But again, God, his first taste of the big leagues. We're seeing Addison Barger struggle right now. Are we calling him cooked? No, we're not. So I'm very excited.
They'll get fans all riled up too. A plus glove in the outfield.
Hey, Rob, all frisky. Defensive run save, Rob. We got you covered, bud. They had to sprinkle that in there a bit, right? They couldn't just give us all offense.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to touch on that, go for it. But I'm just going to just go to Will Wagner, as we mentioned off the top, son of Billy Wagner, the great closer. Again, obviously the third player acquired in the trade. He's 26 years old already. Again, another left-handed bat. And his numbers at AAA, again, like you mentioned, Cole, about Jake Bloss not lasting long in AAA, it wouldn't surprise me if this guy doesn't last very long either. His AAA numbers this year, he's played 70 games, over 300 plate appearances. He's got, 13 doubles. Again, not all the power there, but 54 walks to 33 punch-outs.
Does that remind you of anyone, Pricey? Does that remind you of anyone?
I don't know.
The Jays roster?
The Jays go after?
Spencer Horwitz.
Yeah, well, there,
yeah,
sure.
That's what I was thinking.
And the numbers kind of back it up too. A little 307 average, 424 on base, 853 OPS. Yeah, he's dominated AAA all season long. And at 26 years old, you want to see him take that step. So again, another guy that by season's end, it would be baffling to not see him in a Jays uniform.
From both sides, before we get Robin here for the first time in a little bit, is not only did the Yusei Kikuchi trade hit on all markets, but it did so at the exact thing that the Jays said they were trying to go after. Big league ready guys to compete in 2025. Not only is that the headline of our trade deadline and saved, in my opinion, our trade deadline, but I think that it's also going to be the one that we're going to be talking about the most this year, because all 3 of the guys, as you just said, are going to see the big leagues this year. Like, all 3 of them are going to see it, whereas the rest of our trades that we're going to get into, we don't know. Like, there isn't really a whole lot of talks about the rest of their trades that we made in terms of guys seeing big league games this year. But that trade specifically, 100%, and it also has the most promise, which I think just the entire deadline that the Toronto Blue Jays wanted to have is summed up in one trade, and that was Yusei Kikuchi.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel like there's like not much I feel like it's almost illegal to have a different kind of take. You mentioned you look at the value that you got for the Yusei Kikuchi. It's hard to just argue that's just not a great move. I mean, one thing I do want to say too, the hats off, tip of the cap to Yusei Kikuchi. I mean, just think of where we were with him 2 years ago around this time. I mean, like I said many times on this program, there were talks of that. Should you just punt on the contract? 2 years, over 8 figures on that contract for across multiple seasons. Should you just punt on it and start fresh and admit it was a mistake? And the fact that you got a legitimately good season out of him last year when you were contending for a postseason spot, and then able to trade him and turn him into very legitimate prospect value. I mean, yeah, this move all around, the investment, the production. I mean, it hit for the Blue Jays and Ross Atkins.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like you mentioned, Cole, that Bloss is obviously the third-ranked prospect in the org. Will Wagner is the 21st-ranked prospect in the org. And, oh, by the way, Lopervito is at the big league level. So, yeah, crazy stuff, fellas. Now, let's keep rolling along here to the second biggest trade that happened, and that was Danny Jansen. Going to the Boston Red Sox, which is a little bitter, but you know what? It is what it is. We're not competing, so it doesn't really matter too much. He goes to the Boston Red Sox for Cutter Coffee. What a name. Edinson Paulino and Gilberto Batista.
Yeah, and it does matter. It does matter that he went to the Red Sox because trading within the division, especially from a primary position like catcher, means that the Boston Red Sox knew they were going to pay a premium for that. So it actually does matter. Obviously, from a fan perspective, we'd prefer him not to be a Boston Red Sox. But from looking ahead perspective, that's exactly where we would want our players to go, is within the division as long as they're paying premiums.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'll rip through the stats here real quick and then let you go in here, Rob.
Yeah, you go ahead.
So Cutter Coffee, we'll start with that. Obviously, the first name that was brought up in the trade, so we'll start with him. Young kid, 20 years old, just got to high A ball. Again, at 20 years old, you shouldn't be at high A ball. There's that. He's got 14 bombs in the 61 games that he's played down there on an OPS of 784. The batting average is low, but Rob, I can see Rob just cringing when I say that. Throw 321 on base percentage, a 463 slug. Advanced A ball at 20 years old. Like it's a lottery ball, but a pretty damn good one at 20 years old.
And showing good offensive numbers. I think that's the big thing here for bringing up guys to the system. We've always had worries some about power bats. That hasn't been the Jays' MO, at least with this current core and this current front office. So I think that this deadline, as we continue to get through these guys, we're going to see a lot of the similarities in the terms of high power upside.
Yeah, absolutely. And now to Edinson Paulino, who was the second guy in the deal. Where is he down here? Yeah, 21 years old. Again, 21, but he made it to Double A. And that's where he is right now. He's played 69 games there. He's got a 740 OPS, guys. 6'2", 63 average, 349 on base. Only 3 home runs, so not a lot of power there. But again, solid numbers at Double A at only 21 years of age. It ain't bad, fellas. It really isn't. And then the last one before Rob flies in here quick. Gilberto Batista, man, I mean, not much to say about him. 19-year-old kid from the Dominican Republic. He's played 2 years in the minor leagues. He's with the Florida Coastal League, which I believe the season just ended for them. He's 19 years old, and the ERA just sub 4. Sure, just an arm, right? A depth arm. Finally, they get a pitcher in one of these trades. Rob, what do you got for me, bud?
I will say, overall, seems like good value for an expiring Danny Jansen. I do agree with you that trading within the division, the premium, I'm okay with that. And you're not contending, put your pride aside. I don't care it's your rival. Make the best move for the organization. Coffee obviously being the headliner of that trade. I think, and I mentioned this on the live earlier today, what I've liked the most is that amongst the pool of players, it does seem as though you've tapped all the different types of prospects you can get. You've gotten the big league ready guys. You've gotten the high upside, but a little farther away guys like Coffee, as you mentioned, only 20 years old. And even the guy that they got for IKF, I'm sure we'll talk about him, McAdoo. That's a guy who, legitimate power bat, a guy who's got some power upside. You got a little bit more of a high floor guys like the guy they got for Jimmy Garcia, Class A. He's a big league ready guy as well. So it really does feel that they diversified their portfolio in terms of the types of prospect to get. And to me, the first thing that pops to my mind is that's perfect for trades, because regardless if we were trading with, whatever they value, big league ready guys, more projects. The Blue Jays have kind of gotten a little bit of everything. They've shopped in every aisle when it comes to this seller's market that they found themselves in. And I think that, it's a good way of doing business. Having a lot of everything, that's A-okay with me.
Yeah, I got a quick thing to say. I said that from a what's going to happen, I think from a result standpoint for Yusei Kikuchi and the Astros, I don't know why the Astros would go after a lefty that profiled the way that he did with the Crawford boxes in right field. And on the opposite end, not that I don't think it makes sense for the Red Sox to grab a righty pull hitter in Danny Jansen. It just didn't make sense when you have but it just didn't make sense when you have Connor Wong being elite this year for you. On your roster. So two trades that we've talked about so far, and it's a good thing that we get to sit here and say doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for their team.
Yeah.
Here's also too the important thing is that then there's been rumblings about this as well. The Toronto Blue Jays, they will like to contend in 2025. We know that, and right now their catching depth looks Alejandro Kirk and Brian Serven, which would suggest, hang on. What do you do next? Because there's really no one knocking on the door in the pipelines, which means you're going to have to go out and pay for one in free agency. And right now the catching market looks pretty depressed. On the top of it, our guy Danny Jansen. I mean, look, it's a little tough because, there was so much mutual interest and they were so close on numbers. Like, as, they were to get a deal done, why didn't they just get an extension done? Which I thought they should do. But now, hang on. All of a sudden, you can kind of get the best of both worlds. In a season where you're not contending, if you can go out and pay Danny Jansen the contract he wanted all along, which I think he deserves. I think that especially in this market, there's no better option, in my opinion. You look at all the catchers out there, I think Danny Jansen's probably the best out of all of them. So I do think a reunion would make sense for him and for both sides, really, because the Jays need a catcher, and he seemed to like it here for the most part over the course of what's been almost a decade or over a decade since he actually got drafted by the team. So if you can get Danny Jansen, give him a fair market value contract, and also extract some good prospects, I mean, all of a sudden, Ross Atkins, he looks like he's playing 3D chess all over the place if that actually comes to fruition, which I think it should.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about free agency when the time comes. That's going to be in, we have the whole winter to talk about it, but I think that's an interesting point. I think that's something you look out for.
And not only Danny Jansen, just like we did last year when we talked about signing Teoscar Hernandez, getting him back on the roster would have made a whole lot of sense. But Yusei Kikuchi as well would make a whole lot of sense come free agency. So don't be surprised if there's reunions with all these expiring contracts that we just got rid of.
Wouldn't that be something, eh, fellas? You acquire these 6 guys, like 3 dudes that are big league ready and great looking young players. And they're like, hey, Boston, we got 3 guys from you, all 21 years or younger, that got some little upside to them. And we're going to get our guys back. Thank you. Like, oh,
thank you.
Crap. Like you mentioned about 3D chess. Now, last thing I want to talk about when it comes to that trade, 2 of the 3 guys, obviously the young fellow, the 19-year-old, no one knows what he is, but Cutter Coffee is the 28th ranked prospect. And now the Jays organization, and Edinson Paulino is the 20th ranked prospect in the Jays org. So there's that. Now, let's keep rolling. Let's get to that third biggest one, which I think we can agree is Jimmy Garcia going to the Seattle Mariners for Jonathan Clase and catcher Jacob Sharp. Now, he is not the Danny Jansen replacement. Let's be real about it. But let's start with the young fella, Jonathan Clase. Obviously acquired from the Seattle Mariners. He's the one word that you want to talk about when it comes to him is speed. Dude can fly. He had 79 stolen bases last season. 70. No, hold on.
Yeah, hold it. Yeah.
Yeah, 79, right? Isn't it?
I don't think so.
No.
Ricky Anderson 2.0.
Yeah.
In the minor leagues, he had something like that. Am I wrong with that?
I think I heard 79. That's a buzz number for me that I've heard today. It might be true.
Maybe I'm wrong. He had 62.
We'll look it up. We'll look it up on the back.
Yeah, regardless, it's a crap load of freaking speed.
Yeah, 97th percentile in speed.
Yeah, 97th is insane, fellas. Now, he had a cup of coffee with the Seattle Mariners this season. Didn't go all that great. Hit a .195 with an OPS of 452, but his numbers in the minor leagues, which obviously a much bigger sample size at 59 games, 280 plate appearances, he has an 856 OPS. I mean, he's been good, 10 home runs to go along with that, 40 walks to 72 strikeouts, so not a bad ratio whatsoever. He's been great. Oh, no, there it is right there. In 2023, he stole 79 bases. Yep, there it is.
And how many games?
79 in 129.
129 games.
Dude can fly.
That's stupid.
So far this season, he has 26 stolen bases, only caught 9 times.
That's legitimately looking at the catcher before the game starts and saying, guess what? I'm stealing 3 bags today, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they do with the Jays catchers all the time.
He's a number 7 prospect now, right?
Let me.
I believe he's top 10.
It definitely is top 10. He is now. Put me on the spot there. 8th, just behind Addison Barger. So there's
Yeah.
that's
So,
what it looks
so basically, like I have two thoughts. One, I mean, first of all, nominally to get a top 10 prospect in your farm system for
Yep.
an expiring contract reliever who coming off an injury, I mean, you can't help but think that's pretty solid. At the same time, though, you've seen all the moves that you got for relievers. Other teams got for relievers over the course of the deadline. You're thinking, all
Mhm.
right, it feels like it was pretty par for the course. It doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
steal in terms of what the market was, but it does feel like a pretty good return.
Yep. Happy.
Yeah, definitely. And Jacob Sharp, not much to him.
Not much to him.
Catcher. Say again.
Yep. No, you're right.
Yeah, that's the one Baseball Reference page that I didn't pull up.
Yeah.
But he's a short dude catcher.
Yeah.
There ain't much to him. I got it right here. He is 22 years old in A ball, which that right there is like a little bit of a flag. He's only 5'7". He was a 17th
That's a
round pick.
flag.
Yeah,
Being
there's
I'm
flags
sorry,
everywhere.
but I
Yeah.
shout out to the short kings. I'm not one of them, but I no disrespect, but 5'7", playing professional baseball. I'm sorry, I don't expect a whole lot out of you unless you're
You
Jose
should not.
Altuve. Yeah.
You should not. In A ball this year, he's played 44 games, got an OPS of 773. So something to look at a little bit there. He's got 6 home runs in 44 games, so maybe a little something as a catcher. But 5'7", it's an upward battle for the young fella. But how you guys feeling?
Pun intended. That was. I wish you're. Yeah, that was good. Come on.
I should have.
You should have got
that one.
Should have.
But yeah, how we feeling about that Jimmy Garcia trade? Obviously, a rental reliever. How we feeling?
Happy.
Yeah, I pretty much gave my thoughts. I think that for the most part, like to get a top 10 prospect, I mean, that does have something to say about your farm system. Probably wasn't all that good to begin with, which we know the Blue Jays farm system wasn't before this trade deadline, at least.
Yeah, but I believe he was ninth. I believe he was ninth in the
10th. I think it was 10th in Seattle.
10th in Seattle.
Like
so a top 10 prospect.
10th in a Seattle farm system that's pretty deep. They have multiple top 100 guys according to many prospect rankings. So nothing to sneeze at there. But I will say though, relative to all the other moves, it does appear as though it's pretty par for the course. That's just the price. That's the price of relievers, and basically, if you're trying to contend, that's the price for buyers now, which is why would have been nice if they moved Chad Green and or another pitcher with the control after this season. But still, yeah, in a vacuum, I'd say it's pretty solid.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep moseying on. Nate Pearson. I mean, we'll get through this one fairly quickly because we're getting to that point. Yohendrick Pinango. What a name, fellas. I mean, that's just a handle and a half right there. Outfielder, 5'11" guy. He's 22 years old in Double-A. So it's, again, very, very good for your age. And his numbers in Double-A, not great, right? 661 OPS in the 55 games that he's played. So it's really not great. But in the 29 games at Advanced A-Ball, where he did spend like 3 years there, so that's kind of a little bit of a red flag as well. But he did have 1,000 OPS in 29 games, which is 122 plate appearances. So very good numbers there, but he hasn't translated to Double-A. And scouts always say that the biggest jump, other than AAA to the big leagues, is that high A to Double-A number.
Yep.
So he's struggling with that right now. But again, only 22 years old, so still a lot of room to grow. Again, you got it for Nate freaking Pearson, right? You can't expect
couple lottery tickets.
Absolutely. And I mean, good. Lottery ticket at best for the other fellow. Where is he? Josh Rivera. Boy, oh boy. He's 6'2", great. Middle infielder. He's 23 already. He's in Double-A this year, but the numbers. Fellas, they ain't good. I mean, he's sitting there with a 537 OPS in 68 games, 253 plate appearances, and OPS of 537. It's not good. So there's your throw in. There's your little extra throw in to that deal.
As we said,
third round pick last year, so maybe a little bit of a raw stuff there for the young fellow, but not looking very good.
As we said previously, getting anything even from a results perspective on Nate Pearson or from a return perspective on a trade was a bonus. So this was a surprise to all of us when it happened. So we obviously can't be upset with the deal.
Yeah, and the last thing on this deal, Yohendrick Pinango is then the 27th ranked prospect now in the Jays org. So 2 spots ahead. I was reading his name ahead of Cutter Coffee. So that's something, I guess. Another top 30 prospect in the org. Piled that on this deadline. So let's keep moseying on here to Justin Turner, which was the first deal of yesterday, where they got RJ Schreck. Fellas, dude's got to make it to the big leagues. I mean, just for the name itself, the memes, the amount of things they can do in Rogers Center when it comes to like
we saw him. We saw him in high A when we went to Vancouver.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
he was playing for the Everett Aqua Sox. Yeah,
We must have. Yeah, that's right. We must have because I think I might have said
Yeah.
something about it. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, he was in Everett, so there you go. And then he got the call up to Double A. He's only played 8 games there. Again, they haven't been great. A 544 OPS in those 8 games, but it's only 8 freaking games. In the 78 that he played at Everett, he's at an 865 OPS, 261 average, 401 on base, 10 more walks to strikeouts, 57 walks to 47 punchouts, 12 home runs in those games as well. Also had 20 doubles as well. So not bad. And I think he's a lefty, isn't he? A left-handed bat. Boy, they went left-handed heavy in this deadline so far. But that's the one for that. So you guys want to touch on that? Justin Turner.
Pretty inconsequential. Inconsequential for me personally. I mean, Justin Turner, a 39-year-old expiring contract who has, not been great this season. We all know, at this point, aside from like taking walks, it's just he doesn't have a whole lot of value. He's a DH who has 2 home runs since April. I mean, for the Blue Jays, got the lowest bat speed in the league. Great guy. We appreciate his presence. He's a guy that you just would have loved to have 3-4 years ago. I mean, he was just a great player for the Dodgers, basically a decade long, and even last year was solid for the Red Sox. The Mariners, they ate all the rest of that contract. RJ Schreck was just kind of a decoration just to make the facilitate the trade, but ultimately this is a CBT move. This is a move to shed payroll for Rogers, which makes sense. I mean, you don't want to pay deep into the CBT if you're not a contending team. And hey, if someone's willing to take on a contract that probably wasn't giving you a whole lot of value, and all you have to do is take on a flyer 24-year-old in Double A, you do it. But it's in terms of consequential for the big league club. I'm not sure RJ Schreck will have any impact on the Blue Jays moving forward.
Agreed.
In the big leagues, at least.
Hope so, just for the name's sake. But regardless of that, Trevor Richards. Let's move on to that one. Now we're getting to the ones that were happening right at the deadline, like within the last half hour of the deadline. Not much to say here. Jay Harry, a 6th-round pick out of the Minnesota Twins. He's 22. He just turned 22 on July 18th. So obviously, was 21 before. Shocking. He's in a high A ball for the Twins, and in 82 games, it's not much to him, right? 214 average, 306 on base,
lottery ticket.
OPS. Yeah, he was just drafted last year as well. So take it for what it is. If you want to go back to his previous numbers, well, he played. Let me go to his Florida
lottery ticket for lottery ticket.
Yeah, his A ball numbers this year, right? Obviously, he got called up to advanced A, but in his A ball numbers, he had an 884 OPS in the 27 games when he was there. So again, like you said, lottery ticket, lottery ball. See what happens. And for Trevor Richards, an expiring reliever who's no good, I'm okay with that. I think we're okay.
We'll say though, as frustrating as the experience has been at times, overall, and the concern they got him for Rowdy Tellez, a guy who they DFA'd. I mean, hey, Trevor Richards not bad. Gave him a few solid seasons, while they were contending. So you can't completely hate him. You got a little tip of the cap.
Yeah, and I think in the right bullpen, he would be very good for the right team. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, like last year, his role was perfect. Basically, being sort of a hybrid long guy, 6 guy in the pen. This season, being a setup guy for the large part of the season, we were exposed to his limitations a bit more.
Yeah, now we're at Brendan Little being the setup guy for this team, so it's going to be a crazy last couple months, boys. Now let's get to one that I'm actually quite intrigued of.
Yes.
It's the IKF deal. Obviously, we all know IKF has had a career season. Which he has.
He has.
He has. I can't.
No quotations needed.
Yeah, his career season, 50 OPS or something, and I'm like, I guess that's the career season, which is
it is.
Anyways, but he's been a fan favorite because he hasn't been garbage.
Yeah, clutch too. Very clutch.
He has been very clutch this season as well, and obviously a 2-year deal, so he still has another year. So got that, that for him. He goes to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Jays get one guy back. It's Charles McAdoo, a 6'1", more or less third baseman from the Pirates organization. And Rob mentioned it early on in the show. He mashes baseballs, fellas. I mean, he mashes. So he started the year at high A ball. Again, how old is he? 22, I believe. 20. No, what did I just hit?
I also wanted to mention this. There's your deep cut, Rob. We traded the 2025 contract of IKF.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess Nate Pearson too. He's the guy who had control beyond this season as well.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go. No, honestly, McAdoo's an intriguing guy. He's not like the type of prospect that the Jays usually target, a legitimate, power upside. I mean,
And we
everyone's
get
tweeting
off
about
of
it.
the
Yeah.
IKF contract, which is also, I think, like a low key good thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like IKF was giving you really solid value for this contract. I mean, like
Yeah,
not think. I
this
mean, it was
year.
factually,
Yeah,
factually he was. I mean, he was like a 3-win player for
yeah,
what, 7.5 million. So yeah, he was doing really good. But that like you mentioned, the career that was a career season for
right.
IKF, and a guy that when you're going to be trying to contend next season, you look at the job Leo Jimenez has done. I mean, there's still some gaps to this play, but I don't think that Leo Jimenez can't be IKF
IKF this
adjacent
year.
next
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that the Jays did a good job. They sold the stock at a high value, IKF's value. It's not going to get higher than this. It's never been higher than this at any point in his career. And even though he's injured right now on the IL, he is close to returning. And obviously, with the year of control of the Pirates, they're a team that's ascending. They're a team that's taking a step forward this season. They're a team that might, has a chance to make the playoffs this season and hopefully next year for them as well. So I do think that they did a good job of selling the stock at its highest value. And credit to the front office by not being short-sighted and buying into the IKF. Strong first half, knowing that using the career numbers and saying it's unlikely that he'll be able to replicate this ever again. So why not get off him while he has some legitimate value? And Pittsburgh Pirates, a decent farm system to get a middle, top 15 prospect from them. And I think that's very solid. Can you imagine telling that you get that for IKF in the offseason when everyone hated that contract? I think that even a reverse 180, that looks like a pretty good investment on their part as well.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a 22-year-old kid, 6'1", 210, and as I mentioned, like a third baseman. And these are the numbers I got for you because it fell apart on me for a second. In advanced A ball, he's played 60 games and he had 15 doubles, 9 homers, 52 RBIs in 60 games, which is kind of crazy stuff. 14 stolen bases as well. And he was hitting 336 with a 415 on base and a 975 OPS. Yeah, bottom line, it was great. So what happens next? You take that next step to AA, which we've already established is the second toughest thing to do or the toughest thing to do as a minor leaguer. And he's played 27 games so far with the Altoona Curve in AA. And he's got 5 home runs, 6 doubles. He's hitting 269 with a 348 on base and an 838 OPS. He mashes baseballs, boys. It's fun to watch. And to lose IKF again, you kind of sold high on him, which was nice. Finally, you're able to do that and not just sell off a guy because he's garbage. You're able to do it, get a decent return. I don't know about you guys, but dude looks like a ball player. Like that stash and that hair, love it.
Yeah, I got nothing to add. Yeah, I'm happy.
All right. Well, the last thing is KK goes to the Dodgers for old friend Ryan Yarbrough.
So that's crazy. Ryan Yarborough's now Jay. I mean, hey, my thoughts are, 2 thoughts. One, obviously Kevin Kiermaier, we know the tough season he's had. He had minimal, if any, value, and obviously we all know the news that he's going to be retiring at this season's end. He's obviously been a great career, being a Blue Jays killer, and even last season helping the Blue Jays. We've gotten to see, the both sides of the Kevin Kiermaier experience, and I hope that, going to LA, a great Dodgers team, a team that's legitimately contending for a World Series, hopefully he can be sent off into the sunset with a ring for himself. And in terms of the Blue Jays, basically the whole point of this move is that there's 2 months left in this season. Someone's got to pitch 9-inning games. So Ryan Yarbrough, a guy who you don't really care about, not really a guy who's going to have any upside with this franchise. You just kind of need him to be a body. So I feel like in terms of low stakes move for both sides, I kind of like it. I see the logic behind it.
It absolutely is. Yeah, and then
that's all hilarious.
Hilarious.
2 Jays killers on the same team from the Rays, getting traded for each other. Which is crazy. Cool. Yeah.
God, watching him pitch for the Blue Jays is going to be a trip, fellas. Yeah. Watching that soft throwing lefty is just
I'm sure Vladdy will be happy because got to get the career numbers on this because I'm just sure that Vladdy's probably 4 for 23 with 3 singles against Ryan Yarbrough, something crazy like that. It's got to
be. To wrap up our returns, I wanted to ask you, James, just so we go through it. I was keeping track as we were going, but I want to make sure we didn't miss anybody. By my accounts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that we got back are in our top 30 prospects.
Let me just I have the top 30 right here. So let's go through it. Okay. So obviously there's Jake Bloss.
Yeah.
Right? There's your in the third. Number 3, Class A.
Yep.
Let me go down here. Charles McAdoo is
Yep.
actually already in here now
Yep.
at 14.
Yep.
And he was going to be actually, we forgot to mention about him. He was their 29th ranked prospect, but that was going into the season, and he was going to jump to 15 at their midseason rank. So that's how much he's grown this year. So yeah, that's what are we at? 3?
Yep.
Okay. Then we got Edison Polino.
Yep.
Will Wagner.
Coffee.
Will Wagner's in our top 30.
He's 22.
Okay, so that's 8. Like 8 total that I have, but continue.
Yeah. Yohendrick Penango, Cutter Coffee,
Yep.
and RJ Shrek is 30.
Oh wow. Okay, so okay, right. Loberfido graduated. Okay, so never mind. Back down to 7.
Yeah.
7. Oh wait,
Yeah.
no. RJ Shrek 8. We are at 8. 8
Yeah,
guys we got back are now in our top 30 prospects. I think that says everything about where our system, well, one was, but also where it should be.
Strides are made.
Post
Strides are
deadline.
made.
Yeah.
Absolutely, fellas. I mean, I think we can all agree there's a very successful trade deadline, and we haven't been able to say that a lot about Ross Atkins in whether it's off season, whether it's trade deadline, whatever, or drafting in general.
Yeah.
It's been a rough one, but this is the one time that he's hit. Now we want to see what these kids turn into, whether that's trade pieces down the road, whether that's on the big club. Let's see what happens next. It's a great, solid deadline. They needed to do this. They did it. It's going to be a rough next couple of months, but the future is bright.
We'll get through it. Anyways, guys, I got to take off. Got to leave a little early, but I stayed a little longer because I wanted to get these takes in. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid day for Jays fans. It's nice to see the Jays fans sort of in unison. It seems to be a pretty good feel on this deadline. So hopefully those vibes continue as we move to these last 2 months into the season, which aside from keeping up on Vladdy Guerrero Jr., my prediction, he's going to lead the league in intentional walks from here on out. There's no one around him, but yeah, it's been an awesome season. I'm sure we'll touch on him next podcast. But anyways, take care, y'all.
All right, well, that's it, buddy. All right, cool. Well, it's just you and I. And I guess now we'll wrap it up. Thanks, Rob.
Yeah,
leaves early, and then we're just gonna wrap it up anyways.
I know. I do want to say a couple things. So one, Rob and I gave an A- on the deadline. I'd like to get your grade. Because basically, I wanted to say this too. Basically, all Rob and all Jays fans really wanted was one more trade. That's all they wanted. It was whether if Chad Green had gotten dealt, I think everybody would have said this was an A+ deadline. So it was simply one more trade that would have given it an A+. So that's why we went A-. So I'd like to get your thoughts.
I'm gonna go with an A. Like the same reason I don't give it an A+. But man, they hit every single trade. Yeah. You know, they acquired all different kinds of players. Players ready right now, like Loperfido and basically everyone in the Astros trade that's ready now. You got the young guys in the Boston trade where everyone's younger than 21 years old. And then you filled around the edges with some other guys, right? The Pirates, McAdoo, where there's some high upside there with some big pop. And you added some extra stuff. I really like the deal. And again, it's for mostly expiring contracts and dudes that weren't good. Like Nate Pearson was no good. Yet he wasn't an expiring contract, but you got rid of him anyways. And as you mentioned, we got 8 guys in the top 30 prospect list. And one the reason why it's not 9 is because one dude's going to be playing with the damn team. Like, that's where we're at here, right? Yeah. So I got to give them an A, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it.
Dare I say Ross Atkins' best trade deadline as a Toronto Blue Jay GM?
I was gonna say, is Ross Atkins back? But I'm like, was he ever here? I don't know. I don't know. We can't really use that. But all right, that's gonna wrap it up for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Blue Jays Center podcast, brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. From myself, Cole Whiston, and Rob Quintelamon, who rudely got up and left, and for Shane behind the scenes as always, buddy. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Blue Jays Center on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.